Welcome to the show, everybody. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Morgan here. I'd like to wish everyone a happy Friday. It's a nice day. I hope everyone's doing well. And I hope everybody has a nice weekend planned. I know that I've got a pretty interesting weekend planned. Some of you know why. Of course, it's no secret. We're heading down to Greg Hunt's office tomorrow at 2 p.m. to let this man know exactly what we think about him. You know, I think it's really important to point out that Greg Hunt has completely ignored the Australian people. We have been expressing for so long now that we're concerned about these provisional approvals with the TGA. We're concerned about the vaccines. We're concerned about the PCR tests. And Greg Hunt has ignored all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, instead of addressing the safety concerns, instead of addressing the concerns that we have regarding public well-being, Greg Hunt has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he is not interested in listening to us. He is only interested in advancing his own career and, of course, advancing the corporate interests of the pharmaceutical companies. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and he needs to be called out. Now, I think I speak on behalf of everybody watching this broadcast that we now see this man for what he is. He doesn't deserve to be representing the people of Australia. And our message is loud and clear, which is basically that Greg Hunt may as well go and clean out his desk because his job will be replaced. Anyway, I'd like to welcome you all to the show. If you've tuned in right now, please go ahead and share the broadcast. We're going to go through some updates. We're going to talk about some current affairs and some upcoming things that's going on. So yeah, as always, I'm really happy to have you guys here. And I can see a bunch of you in the chat right now. I can see some of you on YouTube, some on Facebook. We're live across a lot of platforms right now. We're live on the Morgan C. Jonas Facebook page. We're live on all the Reignite Democracy Facebook pages. Also the Morgan C. Jonas YouTube page and Twitter as well. So there's Zena there, Craig, Harp, Amanda, Alistair, Tara, Paula, Lee, Tony. It's great to see you guys. I like to be in the presence of my fellow freedom-loving Australian brothers and sisters. Shazza says, sack Greg Hunt. That's right. Greg Hunt's made a mistake. He ignored us. He put his own interests ahead of ours. And I have a feeling that might not end too well for him. I think that Greg Hunt should actually be getting in touch with his buddy Andrew Forrest to find out if there's any administration jobs going on with Andrew Forrest or maybe Fortescue Metals. Maybe Greg Hunt could get a job over there, because I'm telling you right now, this guy, his days in office are numbered. Is that fair enough? Am I bad for saying that? I don't think so. Anyway, let's get to it. Rightio. So one of my supporters sent this in. This is pretty interesting. I suppose we're seeing these crazy scenes popping up from all over the world. I'm going to move myself out of the way a little bit. Who here saw this? This is bringing COVID craziness to a whole new level. Now, apparently, anybody that has an issue with these types of scenes is a conspiracy theorist. Now, am I missing something here? Look at this. This is like nothing we've ever seen before. I'm not often lost for words, but I actually am in this instance. So we got to have a laugh sometimes, right? It can't be all doom and gloom. We got to laugh about things. And then, of course, there's this guy here. Does he look like he's having a fun time in there? I mean, this guy's getting absolutely crushed. It's crazy, isn't it? We never thought we'd see anything like it. Who would have predicted this time last year that we'd be witnessing scenes like this from all around the world? All right, so we're going to start off with some good news. And that is that come Anzac Day, in April 25th, we will remember them. Many of you know that the RSL came out and cancelled the Anzac Day Parade. We're not sure whose decision it really was. Was it truly the decision of the RSL, or was the RSL under very immense pressure from the government to shut down the parade? Well, the truth is, it doesn't really matter. I've been speaking to some of our great veterans, and there's so much outrage in the community. So many of our veterans, they want to march. They love marching on Anzac Day. So it will be going ahead. That's right. So the details will be released. This is going to be facilitated by We the People as a show of appreciation for those who have served our country, which is simply a matter of doing the right thing. Is that fair enough? So I think it's going to be a great day. All right, now moving on to some not so great news. A lot of you know that next Tuesday there's another vote for the extension of the state of emergency. As you can see right here, Andrews is the real virus. Say no to further state of emergency. That's right. So what we're seeing right now, of course, is the Andrews government doing a deal with the crossbenchers, the same three that screwed us over last time. That's right, Andy Medic, Ratnam, and Fiona, what's her name? And unfortunately, it looks like it may be going the same way. So this is happening on Tuesday. We'll be showing up to Parliament, so definitely I'm going to go there and make my voice heard. I absolutely oppose any extension to the state of emergency. And can we all agree that the state of emergency has nothing to do with keeping us safe and everything to do with extending the power grab of Daniel Andrews? If Daniel Andrews truly believed that we were in a crisis situation right now, don't you think he would have treated hotel quarantine a little bit more seriously? If Daniel Andrews is so concerned about this virus that he's referred to as, quote, evil, why would he oversee a situation whereby workers enter the hotel quarantine, leave at lunchtime, and then at the end of the day go home to their families? He's proven that he is not taking this, quote, virus seriously. Now, I know that you know the truth about the situation. I know that you know, and that I know, that this is the greatest global scandal that we've ever witnessed in our entire lives. But it's almost as if Daniel Andrews is playing his cards simply so he can extend his power grab, because if you ask me, this man has totalitarianism in his eyes. He takes after the people he looks up to in the Chinese Communist Party. He sees himself as their protege, and it has to stop. If Daniel Andrews truly believed there was a deadly virus out there, why would he have not introduced more strict measures for the so-called hotel quarantine? Why would it be done in hotels in a populated city environment? So we're calling bullshit, and it's our civic duty to oppose this at all costs. Anyway, I'm going to get to the news here. All right, so I'm just going to start reading to you guys. I mean, this is like Groundhog Day, isn't it? This is just absolutely crazy. All right, I'm going to read. Key crossbench MP brokering deal to extend Victorian state of emergency. Again, politicians doing whatever they feel they need to do to advance their career whilst stepping on the people. This is the whole motivation for the We Are Coming movement. So us people can actually mobilize and do whatever we can to get these types of people voted out of office and people like us voted in. Is that fair enough? It says here, the Andrews government is close to brokering a deal with key upper house MP to extend Victoria's state of emergency and break the political impasse. State of emergency powers will be extended for 3 months instead of 9 months sought by the government under a compromise. They actually call it a compromise, being hammered out between Health Minister Martin Foley and Reason Party MP Fiona Patten. Patten, that's her name. That's her name. I keep forgetting her name. All right, so I'm going to play this little clip for you here.
New year, same Spring Street.
Well, Leader of the Opposition, politics doesn't work against this virus. Only following data, doctors and science.
Parliament's first sitting day of 2021 was quickly overshadowed.
Without a state of emergency, the Chief Health Officer simply has no power to be able to compel people to isolate in a hotel.
The Premier wants...
Can we all agree that Daniel Andrews is a criminal? Can we all agree that this man has no business representing the people of Victoria? This is just absolutely crazy stuff. Anyway, you know the deal. This is going to take place on Tuesday. Feel free to email the three crossbenchers. Not sure if it will do anything. I think they've proven that they're not willing to listen to We the People, and it's come to a point where, hey, we all need to get involved in politics. All right, now a lot of you may have seen this. This is coming from health.vic.gov.au. Adolescent vaccinations outside of school and catch-up immunization. All right, so this is in regards to consent, and what this details is the role that the government is taking to remove the role of parents in their children's lives. That's right. The government has made the decision that they know what's best for children. They know better than children's parents. Okay, I'm going to read to you. In Victoria, adolescents, including refugee and other humanitarian entrants aged 10 to 19 years, are eligible for free vaccinations under the National Immunization Program. Free? Is it really free? Nothing is free in life. It goes on to say, consent for vaccination, consent without a parent or guardian. You know, nobody thought we'd ever be reading something like this. It says here, the law recognizes that as children become older and more mature, they are more capable of making their own decisions about a wide range of issues, including decisions about their healthcare and well-being. The law recognizes that a young person may reach this stage before they are 18 years old. And that's based on who? The judgment of the government, the subjective judgment of the government. The law recognizes that a young person may reach this stage before they're 18. Okay, I just read that. These young people are referred to as, quote, mature minors. There is no specific age for when a young person may be deemed a mature minor. Because, of course, that's not the decision of the parents. This is becoming the decision of the government. Determining whether a young person is a mature minor requires consideration of whether they have sufficient maturity to understand the nature and effect of a decision to be vaccinated. All right, so essentially what this says is the government is proclaiming they are willing to undermine the rights of parents and are essentially looking to allow children to, quote, make their own decisions. Now, we've seen, of course, a massive propaganda campaign in favor of the vaccine that has completely ignored the other side of the story. It's ignored the data from the CDC. It's ignored the adverse reactions, and it's ignored the advice from the former chief scientist from Pfizer. I mean, this is like nothing that we've ever seen before. This is something that needs to be opposed by every Australian. Ricardo Bossi said something really interesting that I want to repeat, and that is that if 1 million people march in the streets, we win. Now, I believe our movement is growing quickly, and I think we're strong. We have a lot of momentum, so I believe that day is rapidly approaching, but the time to act is now. So make sure that you get involved, okay? This is going to take a major group effort. Head over to reignitedemocracyaustralia.com.au. You can fill out a form right there on the homepage, and there's a little checkbox section there, and you can actually choose an option as to how you would like to be involved. It could be something minor, like it could be doing letterbox drops, handing out information, or it could be you may be willing to put your hand up and take a bit more of a role in this fight, because this is absolutely crazy. What's next? You understand that this is opening up a can of worms. The government seizing children from parents, essentially. Anyway, moving on. So we saw this the other day. As it happened, Queensland doctor who administered COVID vaccine overdoses to nursing home patients not trained. Okay, so in addition to this campaign, in addition to everybody being expected to take this vaccine, despite the fact that it only has a provisional approval from the TGA, they can't even find proper trained nurses to administer whatever this is. This is absolutely more craziness. How can we trust the government to get anything right? All right, moving on. This is an article from the ABC in regards to vaccine discrimination or potential discrimination. The COVID vaccine is here. Who will be able to see if you've had it? Okay, so this is going to detail the further erosion of our privacy in regards to what drugs we choose or we don't choose to have. All right, I'm going to read to you here. New laws have just been passed mandating the recording of COVID-19 vaccine information on the Australian Immunization Register. And by the way, the government is looking to invest a lot of money right now in the, quote, Australian Immunization Register. They're approaching all different types of technology companies, and they're looking to develop a system whereby, of course, the Australian Immunisation Register communicates with the rollout of the COVID passports. So they're investing a lot of money into this. This is your money. This is my money. We never consented to our money being used this way. The taxpayer is being completely exploited for this government agenda. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It says here, the changes to the Australian Immunisation Register Act 2015 will mean vaccination providers such as GP clinics will need to report to the government who was given the COVID-19 vaccine, both within and outside of Australia. The Act introduces penalties for providers who don't comply with requests for information. Before these changes were made, the Australian Immunisation Register which records inoculations under school-based programs and those given privately was maintained on a voluntary basis. which is the right thing to do. This is our personal information. It should be our knowledge. We should be privy to our own personal information regarding what drugs we choose to take or what we don't choose to take. This is a matter of our privacy. The government has no right overreaching into our private lives like this. It says here, now vaccine providers will have no choice but to add personal information to the register about people's vaccination status. This information can be accessed by authorized government officials, such as, authorized officers and for health and other purposes. It says here, the federal government has also announced that Australians will be able to provide proof of vaccination through an app on their phone, like what they're doing in Israel with their so-called green passports or whatever they've called it. We see in Israel now, every day, there's less and less services, both public and private, available for citizens who have not been vaccinated. We're seeing scenes of absolute mayhem in Israel. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. It says here, the idea that this will allow those who have been vaccinated access to services such as air travel. It may also bestow certain privileges such as being eligible to attend sports stadiums and theatres. Okay, there you go. There you go. We're following the global model. Will you need to prove you've had a vaccine to travel? It says here, consider an airline that refuses to carry a person who has not been vaccinated. Businesses can generally set out terms and conditions that apply to the provision of their services, but they cross the legal line in their terms or conditions if their terms or conditions discriminate against the person on the grounds of a personal attribute such as gender, race, or disability. Okay, that's stock standard. A disability can include a range of physical, medical, and psychological features that may affect a person's decision to be vaccinated. Well, it certainly is psychological. What is determining our decision to be vaccinated? It's that we refuse to submit to the fear-mongering of the government. We feel traumatized that the government is trying to mandate a vaccine upon an entire population. This is traumatizing stuff that has the capability to psychologically damage us all. So I would say yes, this is absolutely. I think every each and one of us would have a psychological reason for not going ahead with this. It says here, if an airline wanted to make a vaccination condition of a flight, it would need to have a strategy to accommodate people with disabilities who are not vaccinated, such as buying 3 seats or 2 business class seats. So there you go. No matter which way they go about it, good, decent people who don't want to be vaccinated are going to be punished, right? So either you'll be restricted from accessing these services, or you'll have to spend 2-3 times the amount of any other passenger for the privilege. All right, apparently it's a privilege now to refuse having some type of drug put into your body. All right, so I'm going to read down here in the workplace. It says, for those whose jobs requires looking after others, vaccinations could become mandatory by law. Well, in the words of our Prime Minister, he said they'd be as mandatory as they could possibly make it. It says here, in jobs that don't require close contact with other people, employers will not be able to mandate vaccinations unless new laws are passed. And you know that they're coming. You know that they're coming, and that's why we need to fire our current politicians and put people like us in office. Is that fair enough? It says here, even without such new laws, workers who are not vaccinated can reasonably expect accommodations will be made for them, such as facilitating work from home or working separately from colleagues. All right. So is that not a form of discrimination? If you don't have the vaccine, you'll be, it's basically saying here, you could be excluded from the workplace. You could be put in a little corner on the other side of the room. You'd have to work from home and be socially isolated from your peers, basically shut away from society. So this is what I'm saying here. You don't want to be vaccinated? All right, sit in that corner and don't come near us. You'll be excluded from participating. It says here, do you have a right to silence about vaccination? The changes to the Australian Immunization Register Act mean your vaccine status will now be recorded at the registrar and, of course, accessible by the government, authorised health officers or whatever the hell you want to call them. And it says here under Section 11 of the Act, it's possible for a person to formally request their identifying information on the register to not be shared with others. This has the potential to provide some privacy protections for those savvy enough, and they're not going to make it easy to do this, to make the required application before their identifying information has been shared. All right, so I think this is the most important part of the article, and that is that there are supposedly some protections still left in place for your privacy. We need to explore what they are, but more importantly, we need more people in office who are willing to advocate for our privacy and our dignity. Now, I want to remind you about something here. We're going back to last year. This was from August 2020. Coronavirus Australia live news, virus vaccine won't be compulsory. And this was from Scott Morrison, this guy here. This man here is a fraudster. This man has done so much to mislead the Australian public. He made the statement, we won't hold you down and make you take it. But what he didn't tell us is that you'll be punished in every way imaginable if you choose not to. We'll make your life a living hell. You'll be socially isolated. You potentially won't be able to access certain events such as sports events, concerts, things like that, travel. Probably won't be able to access things like Medicare services, childcare, restricted from visiting our loved elderly family members in nursing homes, etc. What a deceptive piece of work this man is. Just an absolute disgrace to Australia. Scott Morrison thought that he could coerce us into submission, but instead he played a lead role, a key role in triggering what I think many of us would describe as the greatest awakening in Australian history. I don't have words to express to you how ashamed I am of this man and the fact that he's our Prime Minister. Moving on now to the United States. It says here, questions over vaccine effectiveness as new strain emerges in the US. As a new strain, right? We're going to keep hearing about this. Kind of like the flu, right? The flu mutates. Kind of similar. Every year they want to create a new vaccine. It says here, as the vaccination effort expands across the United States, questions are being raised over whether they will be effective against a growing number of, quote, COVID strains. All right, so what's the end goal here? Of course, the government wants to develop the vaccine passport. And Pfizer is licking their lips right now because they're saying, hey, we get to develop new vaccines all the time. The government will probably require that everybody keeps taking these new vaccines and keeps updating their passport. The government will keep updating the Australian Immunization register. And this is heading towards complete medical tyranny, unless, of course, enough people of us stand up and say no. Remember, 1 million people march in the street, we win. I believe we can win. What do you think? I reckon we got this. I believe the fighting spirit of the Australian people is back. It was sleeping for a long time, and now it's back. What do you think? Put that in the comments. And I'm just going to make sure that the comments are working. I can see a bunch of you tuned in right now. Daniel, Trevor, Harp, Demetra, Doug, Kim, Monique, Jordan, Margaret, Marvin. So great to see you guys here. I love knowing that you guys are here with me. And this is all about we the people. And it's not about them, the politicians. It's about we the people. Okay, so we've got some more craziness from the UK right here. Call for jabs for whole families and doorstep visits to the Wherry to close, I don't know what that means, to close vaccination take-up gap. All right, so what they're talking about here is basically sending vaccination squads door-to-door to vaccinate entire families. It says here, community leaders are pressing for whole family vaccinations, vax hubs in more pharmacies, mosques and churches, and GPs on the doorstep to try urgently drive up vaccine take-up in parts of Birmingham that are not keeping up. So is it really the community leaders that are calling for this from these religious communities? Or is this simply the government acting by proxy? Or is it community leaders acting based on coercion from the government? So it says here that supposedly community leaders want to see whole family vaccinations, jabs delivered by community pharmacies, and the list goes on. So that's pretty frightening. A vaccination squad going door to door vaccinating entire families. I mean, are we living in a democracy? Is this a free country? I don't think it is anymore. I don't think it is. We have to take our country back. The time is now. Okay, so again, craziness from the UK, and some announcements were actually made by the government in the UK that were in contradiction to Boris Johnson. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit from this article. I know it's from the UK, but we see all leaders around the world acting in unison. Okay, what's happening over there is happening here, and vice versa. This is a true coordinated global effort to essentially strip us of our dignity and to coerce us into a state of submission. It says here, face off. Face masks and COVID tests are not compulsory in secondary schools, and kids shouldn't be sent home for refusing, the government says. It says here, the government has said both measures are voluntary and that teachers should not send pupils home for refusing. Sounds pretty good, right? Goes on to say, Boris Johnson announced this week that secondary school kids are to be tested twice a week, insane, under fresh plans to get children back in the classroom in England next month. They'll also be required to wear face masks if it is not possible to socially distance. But according to ministers, these measures are not a legal requirement and children must not be kicked out of the classroom if they resist. So there seems to be a disparity between what the Prime Minister is saying and what other ministers in the government are saying. This morning, Schools Minister Nick Gibbs said masks are, quote, highly recommended but not compulsory, nor should they be. Speaking to BBC Breakfast, he said, quote, we are saying it is not mandatory for schools to have masks in classrooms, but it is highly recommended because we want to do everything, blah, blah, blah. So there's twice a week testing of students, as if that's not traumatized. Twice a week having some swab stuck all the way down your throat, basically nearly touching your brain. All right, so a lot of mixed messages, as we've seen mixed messages here in Victoria, right? Victoria Police acting on behalf of the Daniel Andrews corrupt government, choosing when to enforce the Chief Health Officer's directions, being selective in how they enforce those directions. Protests against lockdowns, protests against the government. We'll kettle you, we'll smash you. Invasion Day, no problem. I mean, is Victoria Police directly taking orders from Daniel Andrews? Have you ever asked yourself that? What do you reckon? Put that in the comments. All right, so moving on to Israel here in pictures. World's first ever event open only to people who have had a COVID vaccine. Now, as in terms of percentage-wise, Israel has a majority, has the largest percentage of their population vaccinated, okay? I believe it's around 55%. So they've been really aggressive in coercing their population to get the COVID-19 jab. So we can see a concert. I'm going to read to you a little bit here. It says, music concerts are being held once again in Israel in a way that could set a precedent in a world longing for a return to normal as soon as possible. No thanks. I think we need to reject that precedent. Attendees had to present a vaccine passport to gain entry, like the type of vaccine passport that ScoMo is gushing over. An open-air concert in Tel Aviv on Wednesday was one of the first in the program to restart cultural events by restricting attendance to people who have not been vaccinated or those with immunity after contracting COVID. So as you can see here, clearly, so they've all had the vaccine. They had to show their vaccine passport, yet they're all still required to wear face masks. They all have to socially distance, which begs the question, if this vaccine is so bloody effective, right, with Pfizer claiming the efficacy is 95%, why is the government still requiring people to socially distance and wear face masks? Is it because the government's not confident in the vaccine? Do they not believe in the vaccine? Yet they tell you to believe in the vaccine? What do you think? This is a complete contradiction right here. Put that in the comments. Let me know what you think. Yeah, so attendees were required to show a government validated green pass. And you got to love the euphemisms they use. Green, of course, is synonymous with environmentalism. Green is synonymous with something that's natural, right? But we all know that there is nothing natural about these vaccines. It says here, showing that they'd received both doses of the vaccine more than a week prior to the event. Rightio, so there you go. There's the green pass right there. They've had 2 jabs, yet still wearing face masks, socially distancing, because supposedly this vaccine is so effective. So yeah, we need to reject this at all costs. We don't want this system here. Israel has come on really strong with their citizens, which I suppose that's the reason why over 50% of the population has already been vaccinated. And we don't want that model being carried on over here. Okay, so this is my website right here, MCJ Report, that's right. So you can jump over to mcjreport.com because I don't know how long we're all going to be on social media. You can sign up to my free newsletter right here by just putting your email address in. Don't need any more details than that. And I'll keep you up to date with news, new developments, and everything that is happening in this movement. Also, make sure you head over to the Reignite Democracy Australia page. That's reignitedemocracyaustralia.com.au and join the movement, the We Are Coming movement. The time has come. Our backs are truly up against the wall. If we don't rearrange the seats in our parliaments, specifically, if we don't do everything we can to vote these traitors out of parliament and to put people like us in, we're done for. Our country is finished. We're at a fork in the road right now. And this is going to require all freedom-loving Australians who care about the future, who care about future generations to come, to get involved. So make sure you jump over to RDA, jump on the homepage, scroll down to the We Are Coming section, click on the Learn More page, and find out how you can play a role in this fight. Because I truly believe that despite the many decades of treachery from our politicians and everything they've done in terms to hurt our trade, to hurt our economy, the selling off of our land resources and our environment, I still believe Australia is the greatest country on earth, and we all have an obligation to fight for Australia and to do what we can to not just return Australia to its former state, but to make this country better than ever before. Can we all agree on that? I hope we can. I really hope we can. In addition to that, of course, we're heading down to Greg Hunt's office on Saturday, 2 p.m. That's right. So maybe I'll see you there. And really, that's about it. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We did a little bit of an earlier show today. You can go and jump on Telegram. You can follow me, Morgan C. Jonas, on Telegram. You can follow RDA at Reignite Democracy Australia on Telegram. And that's really about it for today, guys. So I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in, and I'll see you out there.